Imagine this. It's 40,000 years ago on a chilly spring evening. You and your tribe are gathered around a fire. One person starts banging rocks together. Another person joins in and starts to hum in a deep, throaty voice. There's chanting, maybe dancing around the fire. Maybe someone falls into a trance. Maybe someone tells a dream someone had about a mammoth with wings. And at the end of the night, everyone feels great. A little more relaxed, a little more trusting, a little more connected. Toward the end of the evening, someone turns to the group and says, "Hey, let's do this again next week. What do you say? Same time, same fire?" Anyway, whatever the details, if it was special enough, we can imagine that these ancients might do it again and again. As evolutionary psychologist Robin Dunbar imagines it, this is how religion began. Not with commandments from heaven or golden plates, but distant ancestors gathered around a fire just trying to manage being together. His book is called How Religion Evolved and Why It Endures, and it's exactly the kind that I enjoy, one that makes me consider something new. I did not pick it out. As I mentioned earlier, it was handed to me a couple months ago by our very own Jennifer Dunn. And as some of you may recall, Jennifer did buy this sermon at the last auction. So again, all comments and criticisms about today are cordially redirected to her. Anyway, Dunbar's point is this. Religion as a thing did not come crashing in on us from outside of nature, but instead, at least as best as we can say, is vastly more likely that religion is explainable entirely within nature, natural law, and good scientific theory. That we can use the tools of science and reason to think and talk about this all too human feature of our society. And when we do that, specifically the Darwinian theory of evolution through natural selection, it can help us learn important and useful things. What things? Dunbar suggests that religion evolved not to explain the stars or thunder or human mortality, but instead religion grew and developed because it helped us survive each other. Apparently, surviving each other is quite tricky and requires special tools. I can see some of you nodding. Yeah. Now the rest of you are looking to see who that first group was. Right? That's fine. This morning, for the sake of our auction winner, I want to start by taking Dunbar seriously. Maybe not as the final word, but as one possible guide to understanding this mystery, where religion came from and what that might mean for where we're going. I want to begin with a basic premise. Religion, as we know it today, is not what it always has been. This is probably not that hard to wrap your head around. After all, that word religion, as it describes a category of behavior, is relatively new. Not too many centuries ago, it would have made no sense to say that religion was separate or even separable from any other human endeavor. We know this because, until the last couple hundred years, no one did make that division. Religion and science and philosophy and politics were all part of one thing. And when looking at the works of our ancestors, this is what we see. No separation. For one example, anyone remember the divine right of kings or manifest destiny? For much of our history, people believed that rulers were chosen by God, or that they were gods themselves. Today, we know better, even if that comes as a disappointment to certain presidents. Now, Dunbar starts by peering deep into prehistory, a time when we might call what we might call religion today was probably much simpler, much less fancy, much less complicated. For example, remembering our tribe from earlier, imagine that one day a neighboring tribe passed the border of their territory. These two groups know each other, but just barely. There's history, tension. One group lost a member in a past skirmish. No one talks about it. They eye one another warily. The elders trade gifts. But at sundown, someone begins the fire chant. It's an old tune known by both groups, familiar, rhythmic. Someone brings out a drum. Children from both bands, irrepressible and ungovernable as they are, begin to dance. Soon everyone joins in. They all sing the same song, eat from the same bowl, sit shoulder to shoulder in flickering light, sharing stories and lies, laughing into the night. By morning, we can imagine maybe no treaties had been made, but the two tribes that might have fought now are sharing stories. They share tools. They're sharing plans. And that is what Dunbar is pointing to. Religion probably didn't begin with belief. It began with belonging and a shared experience. It requires a heartbeat, a rhythm, a reason to come close. And then it bridged gaps, made strangers into something less strange, made bigger groups possible. In short, religion helped turn them into us. Long before we understood how it worked, we just knew that it did. Today, we understand a bit more. We understand that these ancient practices have measurable effects on brains and bodies. Rituals like singing and movement release neurotransmitters and biochemicals that build trust and ease anxiety. Shared stories reinforce connection and identity. Prayer and meditation reduce stress and encourage compassion and cooperation. This is known. From the perspective of evolutionary psychology, Dunbar argues that these effects would have helped our ancestors survive and navigate the new tensions specific to group living, sharing resources, mitigating conflict, reasons to care for the sick, ways to honor the dead. He goes on to imagine that as societies grew and became ever more complex, religion evolved too. It evolved new features, doctrines, priesthoods, moral codes, temples, scriptures, and did so in wild profusion, all to help stabilize these groups that had become larger, more anonymous, and more durable than any we find with any other primate species on Earth. So let me summarize Dunbar's central questions as these. What if religion is an adaptive strategy? What if it helped humans survive? What if it didn't just survive history, but instead grew up alongside of us? What if it changed as we changed? Now, if we answer these questions affirmatively, Dunbar argues that the fact that religious humans survived better, lived longer, and produced more offspring more reliably, did so, at least in part, because of religion. It's a compelling argument, at least in part because these benefits are arguably still present. There are a great many studies that show that regular participation in communal religious life is strongly correlated with better physical and emotional health, not necessarily because of the beliefs, but because of the social structures and the rituals and the behaviors that come along with it. And if that's true, and it seems to be true, well, that is the why behind why we have religion, at least according to evolutionary biology. Okay, so that's well and good, but we should really not romanticize or over-romanticize this upside. Evolution favors what works, not what's kind. Not every trait that helps a species survive is good in any reasonable moral sense. Dunbar acknowledges this, and so must we. Religion can divide us as well as unite by reinforcing in-group and out-group dynamics. It can be exploited by those seeking power. Religion has been used to oppress and to resist needed change. Religion can, to be very blunt, get people hurt. Now, if the people getting hurt are in the out-group, then making this distinction could also be adaptive, right? At least in the narrow sense. Religion is good for us, good for survival in that sense. But the point is that improving our fitness for survival doesn't always take us toward love, compassion, or our better angels. Just because something evolved doesn't mean it's sacred. And just because something is adaptive doesn't mean it's good. This brings us to a turning point, because while Dunbar's evolutionary account helps us understand how religion happened, why it is still happening, it doesn't limit what religion could mean. If you're seeking to understand religion from the perspective of evolutionary biology, some things will be lost. Ecstasy, transcendence, mystical oneness with the unity of all things. All of that can be explained away as the result of some truly epic neurochemical cocktails our brains can cook up like cranked up addicts set loose in a meth lab. But I want to say that religion, at its best, might have more to offer. Not just chemical highs, but aspirational depth. Not just bonding, but meaning making. Not just survival, but moral growth. Those feelings of awe and oneness certainly have roots in biochemistry. But what we do with those feelings, how we shape them into communities, covenants, and commitments, that can be something else entirely. So let's take Dunbar seriously. Let's honor what he helps us see. That despite the wild diversity of human religions, with all of the incredible variety and expression, religion is and always has been a deeply human thing, deeply embodied, deeply rooted in an evolutionary story. But it's not the whole story. We know that natural selection is ruthlessly pragmatic. It selects for traits that helps organisms pass on their genes. It is completely selfish and cares only about survival, and individual survival at that. It doesn't care about fairness. It doesn't care about fairness or kindness or community. So while religion may have helped early humans get along, evolution has never been particularly invested in our highest ideals. It doesn't prioritize love over dominance or compassion over control or love over hate. And it certainly doesn't require us to care about people who aren't in our immediate circle of kin and tribe. But despite what J.D. Vance might say, we do care. In fact, we care a lot. And that's both weird and interesting. Because for reasons we don't fully understand, we humans do not appear to be limited to evolution's ancient strategies. We can and do choose new paths. We can take what once helped us survive and use it to help us flourish. Here's the twist Dunbar doesn't dwell on, but that we Unitarian Universalists might. At some point, human beings became capable of reflecting on our evolutionary inheritance. We became aware of our instincts, and most astonishingly, we also became capable of resisting them. We learned that we could care for people outside of our group, that we could build communities based not on blood, but on values, not on survival, but on shared purpose, not on hate or division or difference, but on something as whimsical, ephemeral, and transcendent as love. We humans are not limited to evolution, perhaps precisely because we can imagine revolution. This, to me, is where a religion balanced with the insights of modern science might find its footing. Not in justifying the way things are, but imagining the way things could be. Not in bowing to nature's clear indifference, but by accepting and using what evolution has given us. Of all in creation, we can study our history, comprehend our limits, imagine more, and then choose it. Choose to change, choose to grow, choose our own path ethically, socially, and politically. We don't have to be governed solely by loyalty to our tribe or a fear of scarcity. We are not limited by our history. We are not bound to our fate because we can choose generosity. We can choose peace. We can choose each other. And this is where I want to stake my claim. Not against science, but maybe just beyond it. Because we are not just robots on chemical strings, responding blindly to environmental pressures, buffeted by chance and threatened by the vagaries of nature. Whatever else we are also covenantal beings, capable of choosing again and again what to value, what to become, and who to be to one another. Religion helps us take the gifts and the burdens of our evolutionary history and shape them into meaning, into direction, into purpose. It gathers us around a different kind of fire, the fire of commitment, of justice, of love. You might be wondering, all of this sounds very interesting, Reverend Scott, but what does this mean for us? What does this have to do with any of us here now in this room? Why should we care how religion evolved? Because we are living in a time of deep social fragmentation, an age when and where people are more connected than ever and more alone. Loneliness, isolation, anxiety, these aren't just individual problems. According to the Surgeon General, we are all suffering from them as much as we'd suffer from a biological plague. Evolution gave us the tools to survive in groups, but it's quite possible that the world we live in has outpaced these tools. In a digital world, we're just lumpy bits of meat, wired for eye contact, for touch, for ritual, for singing together, for dancing under the stars, for howling at the moon, not for doom scrolling, not for texting in silence, not captured by an endless parade of highly entertaining baby goat videos. We gather because we know our gathering means something, because real, embodied, intentional religion has something urgent to offer. Unfortunately for our friends at the fundamentalist church across town, that real value is not dogma or doctrine. What religion has to offer us, the true gift, is a way to practice human connection, friend-making, community construction, weaving together the life-giving webs of interdependence. And despite what we may have learned at catechism, this is pretty much the whole game. Of course, I'm a Unitarian Universalist saying that. And to be fair, we UUs have always been a bit spiritually countercultural. We don't accept tradition just because it's old. We don't believe a thing just because someone tells us to. We don't follow a faith frozen in place. No. Instead, we adapt. We experiment. We innovate. But we do it in service of something higher than mere survival. We do it in service to compassion, justice, and reverence for life. The point, at least as I understand it today, is not to throw out religion because it may have evolved from good herb and truly excellent brain chemistry. The point is to reclaim it, just like we could reclaim all things of value. We reclaim it in service to those who came before us. We claim it in service to who we want to be. We reclaim it in terms of who we want to become. We reclaim it as a path, a tool, a place where we can grow and love and thrive. And that's why we use its tools with care and intention. Ritual to deepen our awareness. Story to voice and shape our shared values and imagine a better way. Community to hold our highest aspirations and to hold us accountable to them. This is the way. Religion didn't end with tablets or the temple or the Reformation or the Enlightenment. It didn't end with Darwin. Religion is a story that is not finished. Life and love and the ongoing march of justice and progress, these things are the path, not the destination. And we here know that path leads us always onward, upward, forever. And you and I, we are part of that endless conversation. What we choose to practice, to value, to lift up and let go of, that defines and shapes what religion becomes for us and for that next generation. We get to choose what our faith means, always. You want to talk about a radical evolutionary step? Choose love. Show up for community week after week. Forgive someone. Listen, don't judge. Say, this is not just about me, this is about us. And know that when you do these things, this is not nature's way, but it is ours. Because while evolution might not care, we do. We are not the first to gather around the fire, and we will not be the last. But what we do while we are here, it matters. What we sing, what we build, what we bless, it matters. We are clearly made of neurons and hormones and instinct, but we are also made of covenant and memory and hope. And when we choose each other again and again, we light the way forward for our families, our friends, our neighbors, our descendants. When we choose each other, when we lean into community, when we decide that this is the place, that this is the time, that these are my people, when we do that, we might not just survive. Maybe, just maybe, we will get to thrive. Amen.
Visit us at uusg.org.